World Paper 76, Asia-Pacific region is still confronted with many challenges. So China supports a proposal that ACAO give more support in resource allocation to Asia-Pacific region so that this region office can better play its role. And also we support 221 and 225 World Paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity to also voice on the papers presented. Kenya endorses Working Paper 213 in its entirety, Working Paper 221 and Working Paper 225 in particular, the initiative of AFCAC on Abuja safety targets and its request for AFCAC to obtain compliance information from ICAO on continuous CMA and on online framework and other relevant dashboard data sources. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kenya. Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indonesia supports to improve safety performance in the Asia-Pacific region, especially in order all member states of Asia-Pacific to meet the Beijing Declaration commitment to obtain ICAO's effective implementation scores that are higher or equal to the current global average by 2022. So, in this opportunity, Indonesia appreciates to Australia and concurs and support the two recommendations in the working paper number 76 presented by Australia. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Indonesia. I'll invite Cabo Verde to take the floor.
Muchísimas gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, practice has shown that strategies for implementing the regional plans that have been well established are accompanied by clear indicators and objectives. And that is then a powerful tool to incentivize the African states to meet the objectives set out in the global plans in a sustainable way, namely the objectives found in the GASP and the GAMP. That is why Cabo Verde very much supports working paper or the working paper presented by the Secretariat, and also 221 submitted by AFCAC, and also 225 presented by AFCAC on the Abuja safety targets as revised. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Cabo Verde. Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thailand would like to support working paper number 76 presented by Australia regarding the support of the Asia-Pacific region in the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and progress towards ICAO global targets. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Thailand. I'll now invite Uganda to take the floor. Uganda.
Good morning to you all. Uganda supports working paper 213 presented by the UK in support of the initiative under the RSOOs, which is considered to improve the management of aviation safety. Furthermore, Uganda fully supports the AFCAC papers 221 and 225 that identifies the efforts under the AFI plan aimed at improving our compliance of the ICAO SAPs and under the safety targets that were made and Abuja target. Thank you.
Thank you, Uganda. United Republic of Tanzania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United Republic of Tanzania supports Working Paper 3.0 presented by the ICAO Secretariat. Strengthening the linkage between the GAMP and GASP is essential for the implementation of the two plans, as well as improving the PILG and RASC mechanisms. We would also like to support Working Papers 221 and 225 presented by Niger and AFCAC on AFI plan and implementation of the Abuja safety targets. We also support Working Paper 213 presented by UK on behalf of AFCAC and EU and other several states. We believe that coordination and collaboration on implementation of technical assistance activities is very important for successful implementation of ICAO standard and recommended practices. On Working Paper number 76, presented by Australia, we support the recommendation in paragraph 3.1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tanzania. Ecuador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, first of all, Ecuador wishes to support Working Paper 76 presented by Australia. We recognize the needs of the APAC region, and we recognize the efforts for integration that has been undertaken by the member states of APAC as laid out in the working paper, and also the fact that efforts need to be intensified in ICAO. There needs to be better cooperation. The working paper sets out in a clear way the sheer quantity of member states and the integration efforts needed. And we want to ensure that there's no unfair distribution of programs. This should, of course, be the impact of our No Country Left Behind initiative. So this paper reflects the request for the objectives of certain regions to actually meet differentiated needs. Of course, in the different regions, we all need to meet the objectives established by ICAO, but in certain regions we have to recognize that there are different needs that exist. Therefore, Ecuador supports Working Paper 76 presented by Australia. We would also like to support Working Paper 213 presented by the United Kingdom, which refers to Safety Implementation Assistance Partnership, ASIAP. This program really shows integration and the political will of those who are interested in aviation, as well as member states and the regulatory bodies to be involved in this true cooperation strategy to integrate safety. So we very much back up what France has already said. We too would like to invite all interested stakeholders to get involved in this program. And Ecuador, of course, has to also support Working Papers 221 and 225 presented by AFCAC. Now, Chairman, we very much support the development of AFI plan, and it has given excellent results so far. And the vision is to really improve all safety-related areas. And as Cabo Verde said, and we'd like to support what they have said, namely, we really want to progress the Abuja safety targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Ecuador. I invite Republic of Korea to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, the Republic of Korea co-sponsored the Working Paper 76 and believe that allocation of resources based on the data of each regional status mentioned in this working paper will contribute not only to the development of a single region, but also to the global air transport. Second of all, Republic of Korea support Working Paper 221 and Working Paper 225. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Turkey supports Working Paper 30 presented by the Secretariat and the interventions made by Netherlands, including the proposals modifying the paragraph A and D. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Turkey. Venezuela, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela supports Working Paper 30. We believe it's very important to implement strategies and implementation mechanisms that are based on projects establishing priorities and monitoring all of this. And it's also important to align the global, regional and national plans to ensure safety, efficiency and effectiveness. And we also congratulate all the efforts and initiatives that have been undertaken in different regions and member states, as has been reflected in Working Paper 76, 213 and 221. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Venezuela. I'll invite Rwanda to take the floor.
Good morning and thank you. Rwanda, we thank the Secretariat for and endorse Working Paper 30. Working Paper 213 by the UK and its affiliates as presented for improvement of safety. We endorse Working Paper 221 presented by AFCAC as a very strong and well-written paper. It is commendable that African states acknowledge the need for continued efforts for the development of monitoring and measuring for implementation of the ASTs by its member states. Working Paper 225 by AFCAC shows the continued commitment by members of AFCAC in safety by the establishment of methods, effective data collection, correlation analysis, and sharing among all key stakeholders as mentioned in the paper. We believe that our second responsibility to safety is our stakeholders, and by providing them with tangible methods as proposed in this working paper, we can strengthen the CAA safety oversight as stated in 4.1 of this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Rwanda. I'll invite the United Kingdom to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United Kingdom is pleased to support the principle behind Working Paper 76 as presented by Australia. We particularly recognise the benefits of resourcing regional offices according to the real needs of the region. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, United Kingdom. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States also supports Working Paper 76 presented by Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, United States. I will now give the floor to the Secretariat for any clarifications.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Regarding Working Paper 76, I think due consideration will be given to the request, of course. But considering that many other regional offices may equally demand an increase in their budget and resources in order to support our greater states in the region, we'll take care of that as well. Also on paper 221, given that the paper implicates a comprehensive increase of the regular program budget to the two AFI regional offices, the WACAF and the ESAF, in order for the AFI plan to continue in the coming years, it would be worth mentioning that its extension over the next triennium is subject to the Council discussion and approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. I think we had a very great discussion on this first batch on global and regional initiatives. So we'll now summarize the conclusions, the discussions and conclusions of this batch of working papers under Agenda Item 7.3. The committee agreed to the following points: the need to improve PERG and RASG mechanisms and strengthen the linkage between the GAMP and GASP and the Global Aviation Security Plan, GASP. You remember, I think Netherlands made that point, to achieve an integrated implementation approach and the linkage with the GASP when needed. The committee noted the request for increase in budget and resources of the APAC Regional Office. However, due consideration should be given to the decision, taking into consideration the rest of the regional offices, as was clarified by the Secretariat. The committee noted the extensive work of the Aviation Safety Implementation Assistance Partnership, ASIAP, to facilitate coordination and cooperation on technical assistance activities and encourage states, international organizations, industry, financial institutions, and ICAO to continue to actively share information and resources in order to promote greater efficiency in the implementation of technical assistance. The committee also noted a request of continuation of the AFIP plan under the ICAO regular program over the next triennium. However, due to the financial implication associated with the continuation, it is noteworthy that its extension is subject to the Council approval. The committee also noted the monitoring and measurement of implementation of the Abuja safety targets and air navigation services performance indicators initiatives, and encouraged that the data collection, collation, analysis methods should be shared. And again, the committee noted the comments to enhance sub-items A and D on the conclusions of WP 30, A to link GASP and D to include RSOOs. Thank you very much. And that concludes our consideration of 7.3 and also agenda item 7. Thank you. So we will go straight to agenda item 8, but I'll give the Secretariat, 3 minutes to, organize themselves. Thank you very much. And the runway safety program, that's a global runway safety action plan, available at no cost. It's free at the website projected on the screen, www.icao.int/safety. So free of charge. So please take advantage and make sure you download the 2 very important documents. Thank you very much. So we will now consider agenda item 8, emerging safety issues. It's always of interest to all of us to look at emerging safety issues. And in one of the discussions, I don't know whether in the first day, it was made abundantly clear that we should not see the negatives of introduction of new technologies. Technologies come with lots of benefits for all of us, but they also come, some of them come with safety issues which need to be effectively managed. We need to applaud and appreciate technology. So this agenda item will examine means for the early identification of emerging safety issues and on global emerging priorities. To proactively identify and address emerging issues, the aviation community needs to find ways to share information effectively in a timely manner. So as we've been doing, we'll divide the agenda item in 2 batches. There will be 8.1, measures to proactively address emerging issues, and 8.2 on emerging safety issues. And Secretariat will first present WP 12 on future safety issues and risks, after which Japan will also present WP 104 revision 1. And before Secretariat presents, I will ask that they introduce themselves. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Martin Moreno, and I'm a technical officer in the operational safety section of ICAO, overlooking the GASP.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Ansa Jordan. I'm the Chief of Aviation Medicine. Thank you.
And I'm Marcos Costa, Chief of the Accident Investigation Section and Acting Item Secretary for this batch.
Thank you. Secretariat, you have the floor to present WP 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Working paper 12, presented by the Secretariat, addresses emerging safety issues set forth in the 2017-2019 edition of the Global Aviation Safety Plan, which provides safety-related challenges and priorities that are deemed of concern to the international aviation community. Analysis of operational safety risks should include looking at potential future safety risks, which are referred to as emerging safety issues. ICAO works with stakeholders to identify emerging safety issues and supports states, regions, industry, and other stakeholders to ensure the organization's work program and its safety strategy address both current and future issues and enable the implementation of the necessary mitigation actions to manage safety and contribute to the achievement of the GASP goals. States should participate in regional and sub-regional studies on emerging safety issues conducted by the regional aviation safety groups and share information on emerging safety issues with other states and with ICAO. The conference is invited to agree to recommendation 8.2 on the identification of emerging safety issues as set forth in paragraph 3.1 of this working paper. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Secretariat. I'll now invite Japan to present working paper 104, revision 1. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. So I would like to present working paper 104 on behalf of Japan. So the objects falling off airplanes, including ice blocks, are catching attention as one of the significant social problems in Japan. And in addition, we recognize that objects falling off airplanes have been increasing all around the world, according to manufacturers' data. It's important to recognize the current situation and take effective measures proactively. So in Japan, currently require Japanese operators to report the information on parts departing aircraft. there were around 50 PDAs reported every year, and these PDAs are hardly exterminated. And in Japan, we had some serious events regarding objects falling off airplanes. In September last year, a panel that is 4.3 kilograms and 1.1 meters long fell off from an airplane, and it hit a car driving on a busy street in downtown Osaka. Fortunately, there was no one injured, though the car was damaged heavily. And in May of this year, an engine failure occurred when an airplane was climbing after taking off a local airport. And it diffuses many metal fragments on the ground. And these fragments broke windows of hospital, houses, and cars. These events raised serious public concern in Japan. And currently, Japan is planning to establish new flight route over the Tokyo or metropolitan area to increase the capacity of Tokyo or international airport, because further growth of aviation demand in Tokyo is expected. Aviation demand is considered to increase globally, and there are cities in the world where airplanes fly along flight routes over dense areas. These states may also be in similar situation with Japan. So in conclusion, it is necessary to collect and analyze data of objects falling off airplanes, and then to develop guidance materials to take preventive measures. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Japan. We note information papers 80 presented by IAC on the course of the realization of the ICAO IAC project, development of operational safety and continuing airworthiness, COSCAP CIS. Information paper 119, presented by Canada on the comprehensive strategy for aviation safety, presenting an overview of Canada's laser attack strategy. And finally, information paper 234, presented by Indian on SkyFit, stress management through breathing techniques, yogic breathing to manage stress. I wish there would have been a practical demonstration on 234, but that's fine. I will now open the floor for questions, comments, and contributions. IAC, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Благодарю вас.
Thank you. We would like to support the Secretariat's working paper, number 12, and note the importance of collaboration in the framework of the RASGs. For our part, we have organized interactions and symbiosis between ICAO's COSCAP, MAC, and the RASGs, and are working together on developing measures for providing for aviation safety. There has been a reduction in the interest of the states in being active participants in the RASG, so we would ask the states to become more active, and therefore we would like, under number 30, to talk about paying more attention to the RASGs and their activities, and perhaps breathe new life into that area of activity in the regional offices of ICAO. Thank you.
Thank you, IAC. Brazil, you have the floor.
Obrigado, Sr. Presidente. Brazil supports the paper 12 presented by the Secretariat, considering the dynamic nature of the emerging safety issues. We also believe that the state members should proactively participate and share information about this topic. We also want to support the paper 104 presented by Japan, understanding that preventing PDAs. It starts with aircraft design and goes all the way to the maintenance and crew protects background, involving along the way a variety of players. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. New Zealand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. New Zealand would like to record its support for the Secretariat's paper, working paper number 12, noting that some smaller Pacific Island states may find some elements of that difficult to achieve given their resourcing and access to things such as internet. And we'd also like to note our support for working paper 104 by Japan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, New Zealand. It's now the turn of Germany to take the floor. Germany.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Germany would like to express support for working paper 104 presented by Japan. We support the proposal to encourage states and industry to collect and analyze data of parts departing aircraft. For example, in Europe, it is already a mandatory reporting requirement. Whenever deficiencies are identified, EASA requires that the industry develops design solutions proportionate to the determined risk. Development of instructions for continuing airworthiness are within the responsibility of the design approval holders. Operational measures can also be applied to make sure that the aircraft are handled with the appropriate care. We acknowledge the sovereign right of the states to manage safety risks in their airspace. We are of the opinion that the combination of these measures sufficiently address this issue. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Germany. I'll invite Jordan to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jordan supports the recommendations of working paper number 12 as presented, as well as welcome the highlights of Japan as stated in the presented working paper 104. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jordan. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Singapore applauds the efforts by Japan as presented in Working Paper 104. We agree that with the increasing number of flights flying over cities, there is a need to address emerging safety risks, such as objects falling off aircraft. In fact, some of the measures to address the safety risks of objects falling off aircraft are also applicable to the prevention of foreign object debris on runways, which is an important aspect of runway safety. Singapore also supports the recommendations in relation to the identification of emerging safety issues described in Working Paper 12 by the Secretariat. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Singapore. Netherlands, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. It's now, yeah. We welcome the ICAO Working Paper 12 of the Secretariat, and we support the aims of this working paper. But we also like to take the opportunity to make some suggestions for further inclusion in the recommendations of this working paper. We agree with the proposed working paper that it seems difficult to immediately define strategies on emerging safety issues, while a new concept, an operation, business model, or technology is not well defined. We therefore support ICAO in this endeavor to ask states and RSOOs to do some scanning of new developments to identify such emerging safety issues. Nevertheless, as indicated in the European Working Paper 46, this is a shared risk, and ICAO should endeavor as well to set up mechanisms about to respond to such emerging safety issues, facilitating sharing of risk assessments, best practices, and providing guidance to states. And it's not only about new emerging safety issues, but also to respond to new developments within issues already identified. Working Paper 12 makes rightly reference to conflict zones. This is addressed in the GAM 2016-2019 edition. And we'd like to draw your attention again to Working Paper 45, as just discussed under Agenda Item 7.3, on risk related to flying over or near conflict zones. As discussed before, Working Paper 45 advocates that this subject remains included in the GASP, also in the new edition 2019-2022, because it's important that mechanisms are in place to keep the ICAO strategy on emerging safety issues up to date. And safety issues may also be related to emerging issues identified in the GAMP or even the GASP. Moreover, it's not only the RSOOs, but also other regional safety corporations, such as the RSOOs, which can play a role in identifying emerging safety issues. It's therefore suggested to enhance the proposed recommendations of Working Paper 12 in line with the proposals made in Working Paper 46. And we propose to add some wording in the recommendations. In Recommendation A, we suggest to add to request ICAO to raise the awareness and inform states of existing guidance on identifying and addressing emerging safety issues. And then, in addition, including recommending mitigating actions and balancing the integrated management of distinct risk. In the second recommendation, the third on the C, we like to add in the end, after RSOOs, or regional organizations, including RSOOs. And then we have some additional proposals for your consideration, which are a bit more in detail. I can read them out, but I can also hand them over to the Secretariat if you prefer that, because it's maybe too detailed. It's for your further consideration when working out this working paper. If you agree with that, we will send them you by email. And thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Netherlands. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States supports the purposes of WP12. We recognize the need to identify emerging safety issues to ensure both current and future issues are addressed and the necessary mitigations to manage safety are implemented. The United States supports states' participation in regional and sub-regional studies on emerging safety issues conducted by the regional aviation safety groups and sharing information on emerging safety issues with other states and ICAO. Emerging safety issues should be identified based on data-driven analysis and not solely based on the fact that it would be considered a new entrant or new technology. Therefore, this terminology should be re-examined as stated in Working Paper 123 as presented under Agenda Item 6.1. In addition, with regard to WP 104, our approach to aviation safety is in the identification and prioritized mitigation of safety risks based on data-driven analysis. Harmonizing this approach worldwide is an integral part of the Global Aviation Safety Plan. Therefore, the United States recommends that this issue be referred to the regional aviation safety groups for determination of the need for data collection in each respective region. Thank you.
Thank you, United States. Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you and appreciate to Japan and Secretariat for the presentation. Currently, aviation demand in Indonesia is increasing significantly. Same with Japan, some objects falling off airplanes also already reported. From investigation reports, the cause of objects falling off airplanes varies, but mainly due to improper maintenance. Indonesia have developed some recommendation to improve operators' maintenance inspection. So in this session, Indonesia concurs and support recommendation Working Paper 104 presented by Japan and also Working Paper 12 presented by Secretariat. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Indonesia. Republic of Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Republic of Korea support Working Paper 12 presented by ICAO Secretariat, urging state and RSOOs for active participation in activities identifying the emerging safety issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. IFALPA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. IFALPA would like to support the Working Paper 12 from the Secretariat and encourage states to become more engaged within the RASGs and also other regional entities to identify the emerging safety issues. IFALPA believes that the data concerning these safety issues is already available. And then having identified them, we would request that states work very hard to provide and look for mechanisms to ensure that they are resolved in the shortest possible time.
Thank you, Faupa. I invite Colombia to take the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Chairman. Colombia supports document 12 from the Secretariat, and we'd also like to support the working paper 104 from Japan on these objects that fall from airplanes and collecting statistical data. We also wish to express solidarity with the comments that have been made on this issue by Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colombia. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Canada highly supports authorities having measures in place to prevent parts departing aircraft. However, Canada would like to support the comments made by Germany and also supports the recommendation made by the United States in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. Ecuador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Ecuador supports the concept that is established in Working Paper 12 from the Secretariat. We also support 104 from Japan. Objects that are falling from airplanes need to be studied in more detail. But of course, it's a latent hazard. So the statistics and the vision that's been expressed by Japan, this could be a good starting point for more in-depth guidance material developed by ICAO for the member states. And this is certainly an emerging hazard for safety and for the well-being of citizens in all parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ecuador. Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thailand would like to support the working paper number 104 presented by Japan. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Thailand. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. China supports the working paper 12 of the Secretariat. We also support WP 104. We hope that Japan will share their experience with other countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China. I invite Cabo Verde to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And good afternoon to everyone. Cabo Verde wishes to support Working Paper 12 presented by the Secretariat and also support 104, Revision 1 from Japan. We recognize that objects falling from airplanes can present a safety risk and also can be a risk for human beings throughout the world. Therefore, that is why Japan has quite correctly presented data which indicates that this is a trend that is increasing in the world, in particular in densely populated zones such as in the US and Japan. And notwithstanding, we need to find a solution. We've got the increase in the movement of planes, and we don't want this risk to extend to other parts of the world. Given all of this, we would like to reiterate our support for finding a solution and giving priority to this subject. And of course, we need to find solutions working with the various organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cabo Verde. The Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Philippines would like to support the Working Paper 104 as presented by Japan. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. UAE supports Working Paper 254 by the State of Japan, and we suggest that this paper to be shared with the applicable RASG regional groups as an emergency risk. In addition, we request ICAO to refer this paper to the appropriate panel for further study and consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, United Arab Emirates. Bangladesh, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to all. Bangladesh would like to support the Working Paper 104 presented by Japan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bangladesh. Nepal, it's your turn.
Thank you, Chair. Nepal supports the Working Paper 12 presented by ICAO Secretariat on future safety issues. Similarly, we also support Working Paper 104 presented by Japan on preventing objects falling off aeroplane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nepal. I will now invite India to take the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, everybody. We would like to place on record our support to Working Paper 104 regarding objects falling off the flying airplanes. Such incidents have been on increase in India. We have been carrying out investigations and certain measures have been taken. However, it is a concern, and we would request Secretariat to kindly take up the issue with the concerned safety group, since the trends are increasing and it's a concern worldwide.
Thank you very much, India. Peru, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, for giving me the floor. I wish to express our support for the Secretariat Working Paper number 12 and link it up with the paper from Japan. Namely, the Secretariat is studying emerging safety issues. I also back up the agreement that's been expressed by the member states on the working paper from Japan. And I'd like to add something. We need to get the firms and operators involved on this subject, because this hasn't been mentioned in the comments so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Peru. I'll now give the floor to the Secretariat for any clarifications. Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief comment on Working Paper 12. We note the wide support for the Secretariat paper, and we welcome all comments to enhance the language of the recommendations. With regards to Working Paper 104, we'd just like to make the committee aware that we do have a standard in Annex 2 that says thou shalt not drop things from airplanes. So that doesn't mean that we don't have a problem, we don't have to address it. The point is that perhaps, as this was discussed on the floor, we need to get the data. And in involving the regional aviation safety groups is perhaps the best course of action, because as the latest intervention from Peru, industry does participate in those groups. So we think that's perhaps the best place to gather the data. And then, of course, there'll have to be some analyses, and based on the outcome, feed it to an appropriate ICAO group to further process. And in that regard, expertise will probably be required, and we'll probably be contacting the states to get the proper expertise to address the issue and issue guidance on how to best address those issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. And thanks to all of you for a very lively and vibrant discussion on this agenda item. So based on our discussions, I believe we can conclude as follows. The committee agreed to the following points. There's a need to raise awareness and inform states of existing guidance on identifying and addressing emerging safety issues, and for the RAGs and RSOOs to play an active role in the process to address emerging safety issues. And I've noted the comments of the Netherlands to, improve upon including recommending mitigation actions and so on. So we will capture that appropriately. Then B, the committee agreed on the need for ICAO Council to consider the development of a study on the subject of objects falling from aeroplanes and development of guidance material on preventive measures, taking into account budgetary implications. And finally, the committee agreed on the need to review the terminology of emerging issues in the GAMP, as was discussed under agenda item 6.1. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the first batch of our consideration of agenda item 8.1. Just a minute, I'll do some internal consultations. We are really at the home stretch, and we will have to break for lunch. It's also an important item on the agenda if you look at the agenda given to us. So we will break for lunch, which has been generously sponsored by HiJ Communications. We will reconvene again at 1:55 p.m. If we come early, I can assure you we'll finish early and you get back the time we lost yesterday. So let's be here at 1:55 and we start at 2 o'clock prompt. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.